Hey, let's talk about building the next version of the web. Zach, good to see you. It looks like we're going out on LinkedIn. I was just saying, you never know because LinkedIn is sort of fickle. Let's just say that.
Finicky,
But how you doing? Good
finicky.
to see you.
Mason, it is great to see you too, man. I'm glad we're getting some time to chit chat.
Yeah,
We only get to chat infrequently, but I enjoy it every time, and I'm so glad to be here. Want to know what you're thinking about? I'll show you a few things I'm thinking about. Happy to dive in.
cool. Let's do it. Good to catch up with you. I love you got the pop of the collar today.
Oh yeah, sorry. We're
Do I need to?
summertiming out here, man. I'm
Do I need to
still on summer vacation. Yeah, you should pop your collar, man. What are we
pop
doing?
it up? Maybe I'll just pop up one side.
Pop up
All
one
right.
side. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do the same. Fine, you
Um.
win.
Yeah. How's summer been?
Summer has been great for me, really fun for Helpfully. Have had a lot of great adventures, both professional and personal. Got away a little bit, got some beach time. I
Cool.
actually did go, just to be truthful to you, transparent to you, Mason. I did go to Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod, and that's why I
Oh wow.
pop in that collar. Now
Yeah.
I learned from the best.
Yeah. That's awesome. Did you do anything kind of, you know, Cape Codish up there or what?
Yeah,
What?
man, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. We took the ferry. I thought of you. I know you're on boats as much as you
Oh yeah.
possibly can be.
Yep.
So I also was thinking of you. We were on the ferry over to the vineyard. It's like 40 minutes, 30
Okay.
minutes. I don't know. But a beautiful little ferry, really small, old fashioned. So 1950s
Yeah.
idyllic thing. And yeah, I've been over there a couple of times before in my life, but just like kind of day trip.
Hmm.
And we got to spend the night, and it was just magical. So fun.
Have you watched Widow's Bay?
No, is this like a new show?
Oh yeah, it's a new show. It's on, I think it's on Apple. Um, but it's takes place in a New England town and that type of
Got it.
thing. And
Got it.
but it has all, it's sort of like if, I don't know, some type of, Stephen King slash
Sure, of course.
like
Mystery, murder
mystery,
mystery.
whatever.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, we'll talk about that at another time. What about from a work standpoint? What's been keeping you busy?
Um, well, let me just give a very quick intro. People might not know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you know me well, but not everyone does. I'm Zach Pousman. I run a consultancy called Helpfully. We do a lot of work upfront in the research arena to help define product strategy. So help define go to market, help define who is our ideal customer, help them understand what the world's made of today. And the world is, of course, changing super fast. So it's great to help companies big and small think about the future that's coming. I'll give you an example. We have a client that is in the residential permits space. They they have a cool piece of technology, been involved with it for a couple of years, and their customers are these residential kind of luxury home builder types. They sell like big expensive homes. Homes I totally am like, ooh, I love this thing.
yeah.
Look at this great looking house. And the needs that they have are to really like dig into that customer base. And so I got to spend the last few months, certainly over the summer, understanding those people well, watching them kind of like struggle through the friction and frustration of doing a home permit, either renovations or new construction, or there's all, of course, a bunch of other little permits around all your big permits. There's a permit you need for the trees, a permit you need for the retaining
Yep.
wall, a permit
Yep.
you need if you're gonna make a hot tub, all
Yeah.
the cool stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
yeah, go ahead.
what type of, questions have they been kind of exploring that you've been looking at?
We've been exploring when to catch them, how to catch them, how to get involved with them, because this is something that I think intuitively you'll know, right? People don't like this part of their job. They don't enjoy that part. The person who owns one of our kind of target builder customer types, they're very they're not at their computers all that much.
Yep.
They do a lot of their professional life on the phone, sitting at a job site, I have seen people, they'll flip down their cool, like Ford F-150 has a tray, like a desk that like,
Oh,
it's an option that you can get in
okay.
your fancy work truck,
Hmm.
but it like turns your work truck into a desk. And I've seen people use it. I've seen people with their kind of like ruggedized laptops. If you'll,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of usage that you're imagining is, you know, they don't love this part of their job. And yet sometimes by the time we talk to them, it's already passed
Hmm.
on a current project. And so it's a kind of a tight time window. So if you have a product that is valuable, but only for a limited sort of part of the process, I think one of the things we've been thinking a lot about that I've been obsessed with, honestly, is how to catch them at that right time just before a project gets into permitting,
Hmm.
and know them well enough, be friends with them enough, stay top of mind enough, kind of all of those go to market, lead gen, demand gen situations and scenarios and tools. How do we make sure we're at the point where they're like, oh man, I hate this part of my job. Oh, right. I do know someone who could help me solve it.
Hmm.
And so just trying to tie some of those loops together, you can miss the train, but then of course you're like, well, I'm going to do another project in a few months, or
Yeah.
some story that they tell us like that. Well, okay, now you need to put them on this kind of list to contact again. Well, this is a classical marketing problem. It's like, how many times can I email you before
Yeah.
you say stop emailing me? And so thinking about content streams, thinking about social media, thinking about all that stuff. So it's been really fun.
Amazing. And for you, something we talked about when we met up, in person a couple months ago was you'd mentioned how, AI, like it's making it easier to have answers. The question is, are you answering the right questions? And so something I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
hear from you was, how are you approaching research that's different today? And what's the kind of benefit of someone, like, why not just like, research has often been a very time intensive, not always fun, sometimes laborious.
Totally.
Um, Obviously, there's a lot of things that are making that easier. What's the sort of role of what a research team kind of adds today? And then how are you approaching work in a different way?
Yeah. I'll take the first question first, and then we'll get into kind of like what's changing about the work that I get to do.
Yep.
I think that we've seen such tremendous, powerful tools come to all of our desks
Yeah.
at basically at the same time. And I
Yep.
think about that as really like the rising tide is lifting all the boats. And what I guess that like what that looks like is
Mm.
every website could be really good, really fast. It wouldn't take that much more effort. It wouldn't take that much. You wouldn't have to change your team very much in order to have more of your website,
Yep.
more branded, more content, more specific, more like, oh, we need, I don't know if Mason and I, you and I go way back, and I remember I was thinking about chatting with you today, and like, remember how hard it was to make a give to get fancy PDF leave behind for
Yep.
some business to business
Yep.
opportunity thing, where like we need to convince you, hey, give us your email, we'll give you some insights.
Yep.
It'll be it. That world's changing rapidly, of course, because how much better is your PDF going to be than something that people could generate from an LLM on their own? So first we have like a new hurdle
Yep.
of quality, but also I, I don't even want to say the dollar amounts that we charged, you and I, long ago, more than 10 years ago, for like a 10-page white paper PDF or like a
Oh yeah.
position paper or top 100 whatevers. Like many weeks,
Oh
many
yeah.
designer weeks went by where we had to go build that content.
Yep.
And now that is not the case. Now that stuff but what I think that opens is, since it's now a lot cheaper to just make, I'll just call it like a generic version of that, a first pass version of that. I think it does help teams also make stuff more specific, more tight, more in the niches that matter, more around the questions and topics that people are caring about. And so instead of having one of those, because it took many weeks
Yeah.
and many tens of thousands of dollars in some cases for us to go build, I'm just thinking back to those days. It was hard work. And now
Oh
that
yeah.
work has gotten a lot easier.
Well, and the flip side of that, I mean, like the job of the commercial web, and this is something that Nathan Hewing over at Webflow, he had kind of reminded me about a few weeks ago, is like it was really two main goals with maybe a tertiary third, which was capture email addresses or credit cards. Like that was the entire web, right? And then there was like this thin brand layer where you might go and have, like a little bit of X, Y, or Z to be able to kind of nudge people down that path to either, give you your email address and then give you a credit card. And then it's almost like that has flipped now, where the most important thing is to be able to project who you are and what you do from a brand perspective. And then the transaction might happen in 1,000 different locations. We may never get the email address. We may only get someone who's just like ready to buy as opposed to ready to be nurtured. And so I think that's one of the things that is really shifting. And what you're talking about is how to make, things that are more specific to, really what people are trying to accomplish, as opposed to a broad, like
you were only going to make one of those a quarter. Like, what was your white paper budget for a given company, for a financial services company, or in this case, this professional services thing around permits? It's like, hey, let's make one permit PDF per quarter.
Yeah.
But now you're just like, we should make 10 a week, and we should make them for every municipality specific. And it should have the Nashville skyline if you're in Nashville. And this is not a national company yet.
Sure.
But imagine that that's true. You need one of those in Nashville, and you need a different wrinkle, a niche in Charlotte versus Chattanooga versus Atlanta versus Charleston.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you need to do that across, right? But that engine has never existed, and now it does. And we should all go and do it. I want everyone who's listening, everyone who watches this, to go and think about how much more scale you get because of these tools.
Well, something Brian Fletcher had posted about this week on LinkedIn, which I thought was interesting, was he'd sort of made the analogy that, hey, there's everything that I buy in the real world, slowly it starts to conform around me, right? The boots on my back deck, my gloves, all this stuff, like us as humans leave an imprint that actually makes that thing better over time. That hasn't been the case for software. Software, maybe there's like a little bit of personalization, but that personalization, even in the best of times of the iExcel days, has been very thin. And I'm playing with iExcel as like the quintessential, early 2000s
personalization engines, and how expensive they were and how fragile they were, how that limited the personalization was. Could not agree more.
Yeah. And, I think the thing that I'm curious about to kind of come along, and it's not there yet, I feel like we're still in the early flip phone stages of a lot of this stuff. Like, and I think you remember probably in the early 2000s when we were at Razorfish, it was like, oh, the age of mobile, the age of mobile was coming.
It's coming.
From like, I don't know, 2002 or something, as soon as like the Palm Pilot was out. Now, it wasn't for like really another 12 to 15 years that, became more relevant.
And if you're a young person, you don't remember this, but this was an era of like this Cambrian explosion, this explosion of evolution where there were many, many phone manufacturers, and they all had a different intent, a different idea, a different direction. And so people would come into work on a Tuesday morning and they'd be like, oh my God, I got a new phone. And everyone in the company would gather around and watch them like kind of like demo and hand the phone around.
Yeah.
And there was this whole world where we were just in an explosion. The Cambrian explosion is like when all the dinosaurs got invented. It's actually sea life one, but whatever. All the sea life was invented like kind of all at once, but all these different ideas for how animals could work. This was like the phone era. It was the golden age where everyone was like showing up at work like, oh, this new Palm Pilot. Oh, this idea, this like funny shape.
Screen flips around.
Rotations, multi-screens on the back. It was just a wild time. If you weren't there and didn't live through that. And I think we are there, and we are seeing that same kind of explosion now. And it's
Yeah.
not yet in hardware, but I think we are certainly seeing that explosion in the hardware. And people are trying all the patterns.
Sure, sure.
We're going to
And I
try
think
out all
that,
these patterns. And so, sorry, go back to Brian
oh,
Fletcher's
and
point.
so the idea from Brian was like, just in time software, right? Software that's maybe rendered on demand. We're not there yet.
I love that idea. I love the power of that. I think that changes so much as well the value of certainly people like
Sure.
like us, like you and me.
Well, and back to the original idea, but being able to have a more human imprint on, I guess it would be called like the weights, right? So the weights of how something operates as an application.
Did he use the example from Spotify? The example I give of this is the way in which so much musical taste is different. So your Spotify looks different than my Spotify, different than my teenager's Spotify, or a 5-year-old, or a person who loves classical music or runs a cool cafe. So many different musical tastes and musical needs. But there's also a million different musical scenarios. And even though our tastes are so different, the Spotify UI looks identical between yours and mine and my kids and your kids and all that stuff. And that's probably wrong. And Spotify's spent hundreds of millions of dollars designing, building, testing, usability up their software. They've worked so hard at it, and it's good for what it does. But imagine how broad music tastes are, and imagine the hundreds of scenarios and situations and different ways people like to consume music and like to think about music and like to use music in their lives to make it work in different times of day and different things. I'll come into those. The software's like the same every time. Like your Spotify looks just like mine at the UI layer. And I'll just say, that's wrong. We should fix it. Spotify should have a team of people building 1 million Spotifys, just like there's 1 million kind of musical fingerprints.
So do you think that'd get back to the, what are the skins that that
was called Winamp. For those of you who are young and don't know about Winamp, another time.
Yeah.
Those were skins. This would be so different, Mason. This would be truly like when you open it. Well, like there's already a tiny inkling of this. YouTube has YouTube Kids, and also tried, but then eventually folded YouTube Music. And some people use YouTube for their stereo. They actually power their music life. They don't subscribe to Spotify or Apple Music. They just like use like a YouTube subscription product. And there's also YouTube TV. People use YouTube in all these different ways. And the YouTube team was at great expense in a very rigid way, building like individual products for like, well, this is a YouTube Kids user, therefore kids need X. And that is a content thing, but it's also a UI thing. The UI is quite different. But like, I want 100 different YouTubes, 1,000 different YouTubes. I also want 1,000 different Spotifys. I think that would be, to kind of Brian Fletcher's point, something that makes it feel like it was software that was just in time. It was made around you and your needs, and those needs change over the day. So the day parts matter. When I wake up, I want something different from Spotify than during a big work block, and then also I want something different in the evenings or overnight. And Spotify could be twisting all those weights, making software fresh for a Zach or a Mason at any time. But then they're just not, because like software has always been this factory of like, well, you're just going to have the car you get. This is the car we make. But that doesn't have to be true. Software is a lot more flexible than that.
What do you see as the reality today of when you're working with these teams and you're trying to coach them on, how to be able to take products to market, or where to be able to start, or how to make sure that you're asking the right questions?
I'll say this about it. I think different companies have been approaching this very differently. So if you have a big enterprise, risk averse, what I just learned, I've been learning a term in 26 called high reliability organizations. So in the healthcare space, for example, I mean, here's how many misses you can have: 0. Should be, right? So here's how many misses the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, air traffic controller should have: none. right? We want no misses, no plane crashes.
We don't want innovation there. We just want to land safely.
And we work for a utility company, and they make energy. They make power. They make power flow through the lines. And that's just a different whole class of organization. So think about your banks, your hospitals, your utilities, just good classic examples. Those companies need a different view of innovation, right? They have to think about innovation in a very different way than some of the other companies we work for that are fast moving, high innovation startups. Those companies are just definitely going to look a lot different. And that's across every surface. So that affects your website, right? In terms of both tech stack, but also experiences. You also need to think differently about your marketing surfaces. Like the fact that a bank has to watch out and catch customer service inquiries that come across social media, like they get DM'd, even though the Chase social media account is run by really cool insiders and some cool outsiders, but like they actually need that as an escalation channel, or their WhatsApp, or, like companies have all these surfaces for interaction and for brand. But then if you're a certain kind or class of organization, you're going to catch, social media is also going to catch a lot of frustrated customers, and how do you escalate those things? So I just think it's worth thinking about, worth talking about. We don't do a ton of work in that kind of true front-facing social media CX space. But I think if you're at Delta, if you're at a large bank, you do need to be careful and be thinking about that. And your website's just going to get a different kind of attention than your small or fast-moving startups. So that wasn't an answer. That was just a big, long preamble to say, I think different companies are different. I don't think that's a surprise to everyone. But I think for me and the way that I like to work right now, I think there's a lot of power in getting outside of the generic. So I think my one piece of advice across both of those two pieces of the spectrum, I think it goes like this. LLMs are great at giving you good sounding advice, and I'll just call it pretty good advice. So, and that used to be very spotty, and different domains were different, and AIs has been moving very rapidly. So, but I just think those are, generally speaking, C+ to B+ answers to questions. And so if you say, hey, I need to develop a PDF for a strategic reason, I need a white paper, we're going to redo our website. Should we do this or that? Here's my analytics. What should we change about our website? Those kinds of queries. And that's just take a cul-de-sac. The idea that one could just dump your logs, whatever they look like, out of Google Analytics, out of your current back office system, like if you have credit card data about purchases, you got AOVs, average order values, whatever. If now you can just ask these deep data science level questions, and you can just be like, hey, Claude, what do you think about this? And Claude's like, blah, 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 and gives you back an answer. But, and I would say the same thing. Those are good answers. And that's so much more power than anyone's ever had. And I think if you spend your time building web products and web stuff, it does behoove you to ask, even just in an elementary way, like, hey, Claude, what can you tell me about this? You don't need to have all the data science queries handy. You can just start anywhere. I think everyone should start doing that. I think also, like all things, remember, like Google, you had to learn what you need to Google and how to Google as you Googled for certain kinds of queries. And so I think the same thing is true in AI. I think you should just start at whatever level you're at as a professional, as an expert in that particular part of the domain. Just say hey, Claude, what do you know about it? Hey, ChatGPT, help me. And I think that's the right way to get started. Just go get started. I think that generic or pretty good answers are easy to get, and also soon to be the difference between success and failure. Pretty good won't cut it. And so I think getting beyond the pretty good answer that's going to come pat answers out of ChatGPT is extremely valuable. And I'll say getting more valuable. The value of those nuances matter a lot. And something you and I have talked about before, we were working on some CPG, something or other, you and I, long ago. And it was Here's a deep insight. Moms are busy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the the glory days of 2010 and
In
Obama.
2010, Mason and I were in a conversation like, yo, you know what moms are? Busy. It was like geniuses in here.
The
And
insights.
that wasn't good insight then. That was B plus at best. That was C plus insight at that
was
time.
D for getting it done.
That was D for done. D for done. I think that ChatGPT and these big LLMs, large language models, are doing a pretty okay job, but they're not getting you too much past that. So I think the level of sophistication and nuance will just always be the gap between success and wild success for me. And so what I try to counsel and coach teams to do is like, hey, everyone already knows this pile of stuff, right? There are easy ways to say, what is the benchmark? What's the bar? What do we know about the world? And then now commission all your strategic thinking, all your product ideation, your new prototype, your new website against like, where can we go that's further than that? Where should we go that's a little further? So I just think pushing, and being as an outsider, I'm usually an outsider when I work on the Helpfully stuff, is I get to be that outsider and say like, hey, have you seen this? Hey, do you know about this? Hey, do you know about this? We're toying with, some tools. They keep on closing. Mason, you asked me as we're getting ready, and I loved you were like, hey, be ready if you can, like show off any of these tools you're using. And they keep on closing like the tools we use. There was this amazing tool they just closed it called Gummy Search. And it was a way like to go on Reddit and like sort through the volume of frustrations of real human beings and bring back like really specific frustrations, but also even like individual people. Like, you should go and interview these people. These are your customers. Here's your prospects. They live here. They're in some tiny subreddit, really niche place of the internet. But they keep on closing them. Like there was one called Koala, like it was bought by Cursor and it's shutting down. So I'm not even going to recommend it. I was using it 3 months ago and now like they're shutting it down next month. I think that those companies come and go, which are like really good at sifting and sorting and filtering kind of the wild west of the internet. But I'll say another just thing that I always advise is the context matters a lot. The situations that the people are in, and you won't find those out just looking at Reddit. I think it does make sense, and I'm hopeful, at least for Helpfully's business for 27, I'm hopeful that they will actually get more research projects. And yes, they'll be tighter. Yes, they'll be faster. Yes, they'll be, I will say, more slipstreamed into more, marketing thinking or product thinking or engineering thinking. They'll be faster, but they are actually maybe even more valuable than ever because getting outside of the screen, getting off the internet, getting into people's either home life or shopping with them or going to hopefully, fingers crossed, going to the energy power plant with them to watch them work in a more professional setting or going to hospitals. We've done a lot of work in hospitals as well. In the same way, it's like, hey, go and watch these nurses discharge patients as they get out of the hospital. How does it work? How does it go? Where does it go wrong? Well, that's stuff that AI does not have handy. Even if like the discharge paperwork says nurses are busy, right? Here's what LLMs are going to tell you. Nurses are busy and they hate their EHR, which they do. That's not that, but so in the same way, that's just not news to anyone. Like, you know what? Who's busy? Nurses. They're really busy. But busy doing what? Busy where? Busy in what the daily rhythms look like. And in what ways are they succeeding and failing using the tools that they have? Those answers are probably best learned not from LLM. You got to learn that from the real world. So
let me ask this. Just thinking back to our early, the heyday of
Mason, I feel so old, man, when we say it like this.
We are old.
We lived through so many eras. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But it's like the 2010 hipster coffee, like all that sort of thing, creating bad insights. You and I haven't worked for a few years together, but I'm curious, like, what's like the 5 things that you could coach me on how to get to a good insight? Like if you were to spitball this for me right now and be like, okay, there's all tools doesn't matter. Like
Hmm.
how should someone be able to deduct a series of things that are happening in the world to be able to have an insight and use that insight as a seed for something to grow from? Because
Awesome
I
question.
was talking with Dave Steer from Webflow last week, and he was talking about the importance of an insight. And so I think I'm curious because it's easy to be able to say. It's really hard to have what I would say is like a true insight.
Yep. Agree that is they're difficult to come by, and sometimes it's like an interview question, like what's a secret you think about the world that other people don't agree with? Like in order for it to be an insight, it has to do something very complicated in the conversation, or
Mm.
in your and I mean the conversation like with all of your client teams or with all of your internal teams as you're building something new. It has to do something really interesting. It has to both be surprising, and as soon as it comes out of someone's mouth, they're like, obviously this is true.
Mm.
It's,
Okay,
so
interesting.
so that's a hard.
Surprising and
It
true.
is a hard sentence to say something where people are like, "Huh? Oh my god, that absolutely was true." And they got to think it. It's like as a person, she's like presenting in front of the team, and she's saying, "Hey, look, I've looked at all of our
Yep.
recent data, and here's what our customers are up to and thinking about." And then they say something, and you're like, "Holy shit! Oh my god, I already believe that."
Mm.
So that's just, I just think of the character of an insight is something that has this kind of, it's like a magic trick or like a really good joke. I think some insights come actually from like, who's good at coming up with insights are stand-up comedians, because their job is to look at everyday things. What's up with these airplanes? Airplane food is bad. Whatever. Being a mom, I'm a busy mom. Here's what it's
Yeah.
like. And
Yep.
then doing that in a way that feels like, oh man, they're going to show you something slightly different, something slightly more interesting about that everyday experience. So good comedians are good at this. And I think good strategy people, good people like you, Mason, so creative. You're like, hey, what's a creative way? And so I actually have one thing I can show. Like I did bring one
Sure.
piece of show and tell, which is this topic. It's about, you don't need infinitely many insights, and you don't need infinitely many kinds of insights. And I'll just show you kind of like something that we built that might help. I'm going to share a tab, and then I'm going to go
Okay.
to it, and hopefully everything's going to work.
Yeah, I
I'm
see
going to
it.
say allow. Okay, great. I'm sharing a tab with you. And this tab is just like a little internal product that we built to power our product team. So these are insights. And one thing that's so important about insights that you need to know is like, some of them have a lot of evidence. So they're on this left-hand side. They're backed by data. Like we feel very, like our confidence is 10 out of 10. Then you've got confidence like, well, I mean, it's an educated guess. Then you've got like theories, you're batting around, hunches. I don't know if you want to call them that. And then you've got speculation. And we picked that because it spells out bets. And we just think about insights as bets. Every insight you have starts in a speculation. I wonder if people do want to do it that way. Huh. Hadn't thought about that aspect of a person's personality or their identity or their behavior set. So, and then this board has BETS. So these are our most wild hairs. Prospects love this. And you're like, yeah, but I have no evidence. Just a total wild speculation, I guess, on this
Okay.
side. And then you have back things over here. And your job as a company and as a person and as someone who's trying to go and market a product or go and sell something better, or go and fix a website, your job is like to move the stuff, right, up the chain as you get more confident. And then basically, this is all only split into two categories: who and how. So that's on this kind of column set. And if you just build this on your own whiteboard, just do this in Excel, do this in your Google Sheet. You don't need a tool to do it. You could do it anywhere. Do it in a in a Trello board. Go ahead and just build one of these. But you just need to say, where are we confident? What are my educated guesses? What are my theories I have, hunches I believe about the world, and speculation? And then it's about the who's. So it's like, these people are this people is that way. And like, how do we love do people love content that's about going their own way? And like, that's just at the present time on this board at this moment, this is just speculation. And then you can open up these cards and you can move them around and you can archive them and do fun things. But it's valuable because I think it takes the world that's so big, so complicated. Insights are everything, everywhere, all the time. People are constantly having them in the company. But where where are we putting them on paper, sharing
Mhm.
them with one another, validating them with one another, and then also using them to be like, ooh, this is worth this. Once we're confident on an insight, it's usually in the product already. But some of
Mm.
those educated guesses and theories that you have are exactly the places where an innovation team or the team who's building the next version of the website or the team who's in growth for a company, that growth minded person is just going to say like, okay, I'm going to go and chase this theory that you have, and we're going to turn that into it. And we're going to make that, we're going to get more educated about that topic. And I just think who and how. And so all your customer journey stuff and all the parts of the business funnel, if you're, a company that runs like a funnel with like a lot of people at the top, a lot of prospects are out there, and then we just need to go find the ones that want to buy our product. If that's your model, well, that's all how stuff. So it's like, how many emails does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? That's a how question versus all these who question. Who is my ICP? What do they care about? And we've learned and learned and learned. So in the space of these home builders, we've learned a lot about how many projects does a company need to entertain in a year to be a good, like there's too low, you don't do enough projects. And then
Yeah.
it's like, doesn't make sense to go to outsiders. Then you've got like this kind of great middle zone. And then you've got people that are so big that eventually they're like big and expensive and they hire someone full time. And that person does this job of this software tool. So that's a really good insight.
So
Like,
is this your tool, or this is just a tool that you're using?
That's my tool. Claude and I built it.
Okay. And I love the idea of
make bets.
Yeah, no, because I think the way that you've described it is very approachable. Because again, like this thing of an insight, like it's often it is either approached incorrectly or described incorrectly so many times. And so just looking at it as something that is both surprising and true, and then to have a process here that you've articulated, which it kind of came to me after that. I was like, oh, bets, which is backed.
Yes. Educated guesses, like educated theories, and then speculation. True, silly, wild ass guesses.
Between educated guess and a theory. So I can understand speculation, which is like, I think there's land across the sea, right? So whoever discovered the Americas, like, and maybe they just ran into the Americas, but talk me through this in terms of something that is just like dumb simple.
Yeah.
Like what would be the examples here for each one of us? Also, I really would love to dig into this and cross-reference it to a book that Linda Tong had referenced, Thinking in Bets.
Oh, yeah, Thinking in Bets. It's a good...
And I started reading it this summer, but I want to apply this to...
and she wrote that book, as I believe, and I haven't read the whole thing, but I did read an excerpt or saw her on a podcast or something.
She didn't write it. She didn't write it. She loved it.
But the woman who wrote it, it's got also like it's in some ways like personal. So it's like, the bet's about your personal discovery of yourself and your gifts, and it's a little bit. I mean, it's not just like a professional practice book. I think it has like a broader view.
It does.
Thinking in Bets is a cool book. And I do think about bets this way. I think one thing that's good about this kind of formulation and what I showed here in that grid is it lets you celebrate getting to confidence in a bet. So when you say it's backed, it no longer needs to be a brand new insight, but it is the foundation on which our company is operating. We believe that nurses will, in this ophthalmology practice, do it this way. Like we believe we can train people to this standard of use of a tool. We built a thing in ophthalmology also.
So if it's backed though, that means
that means you're confident. You got to the point where you already did it, you trained it, you built it, it's working.
It's done.
And now it becomes like the foundation.
And so that's less like, I believe, that's more of like we can see in the world.
The world is.
Yeah. Right. So this is empirical. It is a view of the world. Now, obviously,
it's true enough to run the company on.
True enough to run the company. Whether or not like a square is perfectly square is a different debate.
Correct. Right? You don't need to get philosophical, but that's right. I think what we're trying to do is squeeze a company, big or small. We're trying to provide the guardrails that
Okay.
help them debug their understanding about the world. Everyone has some understanding of like, this is my market, these are my people, this is my customer base, this is what we sell. When we sell what we sell. And so you're familiar with this old story where it's like, why was McDonald's selling so many milkshakes in the morning? Because people were hiring the
Mm.
milkshake itself to do this job, and they had this whole jobs to be done thing. And it was about like, well, we had at that point a speculation, and they turned into a hunch, and then eventually they went in to try to like data back this hunch of like, what other breakfast foods should McDonald's have? That was the next step. But they got to the point where they were like, hey, we're confident that people are going through the drive-thrus and ordering non-breakfast breakfasts, and like this is a fact of the world. So your job is to debug your understanding of the world and make it closer and closer and closer to a match to what's really going on out there in the world. And so when you say our market is this, our competitors are that, our ideal customer is this kind of nurse in this kind of environment, it's like, okay. But then at the beginning, those are claims, those are guesses, those are hunches. So we have them as sort of speculation.
Yep.
Then when I say theory, I'll just say this. A theory is a theory of mechanism, or a theory of like which of the rectangles makes the most sense to like put in which order. So that would be a theory. Then you have educated guess, where you're like, now you've got some data to go along with it. You're getting yourself to a point where you're beyond just like, this might be true, to like, we have some inklings where I would say from like probably true is kind of that column where we say educated
Okay.
guess. When you say it's an educated guess, you're already probably running parts of the company on that guess.
So,
but now you've had to say it out loud. You've had to make it real.
The data is coming in, but it has not been fully processed. That's a way?
Yeah. Yeah. Or just like it's incomplete. So it's like, we sold 3 of these last week. Is that enough to say it's confident? Nah, probably not. Still a guess. And I think every company needs to define kind of when they're willing to move things on the board in that way.
To move that from like an educated guess to
like a truly data-backed confidence.
True data back. And so I think what you're describing is sort of like these layers of confidence from the most speculative into something that can be data backed. And then how are you taking that big board and then distilling that down into something that's surprising and true?
Ask me that one more time. Sorry.
So you have this big board, and it's the the bets, and then you have the how and the who. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then how are you taking that whole big thing and then distilling that down into an insight, which is surprising and true and generally about one sentence?
Oh, got it. So what's good about...
And that's the art and science. I'll just throw that. I mean, it's not...
Totally right. But what's good about this formulation and this kind of flexibility, so however you implement this in your own Google Sheet, what's good is that you can change the words. The words can evolve as you move the card. And I was showing like the card, just imagining like, I believe, at the beginning, it's a total speculation. Like, we believe nurses need this help. And so over time, though, you roll out part of the product, you roll out a little MVP, they adopt it at whatever level. And now you're saying, okay, well, turns out they do like this kind of help. And so you're moving it. But you can also evolve the words in that statement. And you can say, when you say what kind of help, you can actually be more specific. And it's like, they like it that it helps them like tie the patient schedule daily to the to the back end billing system, like the insurance stuff. Well, that's like now a more specific claim about like, oh, nurses need this kind of help. Well, you can get more and more and more specific as you go. And getting more specific I think gets you to like something that as you're editing those, that's the moment where you're like, oh, I've surprised myself because I got new data in from some system, some conversation, hopefully a research project with these people. You went and visited them again. And then they told you like, and you said, oh, well, does it work like this or that? And it's like, definitely B, never A. And you're like, oh, interesting. And you take that insight, that nugget of new knowledge, that's not insight yet, but then you add that into your insight, and you're able to tweak it or tune it or upgrade it, make it more specific, more dimensional, better for your business as you go. And so the cards also evolve, even though you could imagine like your insight's perfect and your idea just on day one, you just threw the dart and it was like, doom, stuck right in the bullseye.
You got it. Yeah.
But that's not true. You're probably going to throw the dart and it's going to go near the bullseye. And over time, your job is to make it more and more and more tight on the bullseye. And that's the language you're using to describe it. So there's moments of potential surprise as you go through it. But if you have a hallway conversation, you're a web team and you've got like all these different competing interests and how the homepage does or doesn't work, or hey, look, when we're thinking about our side door strategy, so everyone's entering our website not from the homepage, therefore it doesn't matter what the homepage says. I don't know. Good hunch. That's my educated guess looking at your traffic. Well, now that actually can affect a conversation that you have, and you can come back into this board and just like take better notes about like, actually the July data doesn't back this up. And you just captured that. And now you can use it to like, say like, well, should we move this? Should we upgrade this? Should we change the wording of our claim about the world? And so I think that some of those insights are basically in the way that you twist the words around. You're editing the words themselves, and the words matter. So it's like, that's your one sentence of like, this is our belief that eventually becomes an educated guess and then a backed piece.
So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're talking about is like within this board, each one of those cards potentially is an insight. And it's really around how that evolves into being more data backed. And then what you're looking at is all of this board could also be something that moves from speculation theory. Like you could sort of start to go down and down and down, because when, if we were back in our hipster days and running around New York in 2010, like getting to one insight that we would put on a slide to define kind of like a whole campaign, that really was a series of smaller insights or sort of smaller ideas that maybe did or didn't grow up into being an insight.
Yeah.
And the job is, and I think what you're kind of talking about the way that you're working is trying to identify in a variety of ways things that can move from that speculation. Something like, oh, I sort of noticed something. Oh, the tray falls down. I'm curious about that. And then moving that up into something that is truly data backed and repeatable, and that can help to drive the business forward. And then once you start to look at that kind of column of what is repeatable, then that's where I think you can maybe then zoom out into one unifying theme. If I'm
go into the nurses thing for a second. They do a lot of time and data studies, and it's like not data that we collected from our product, but I saw a research paper. I'll explain how this works. We believed that nurses wanted to do this particular process on this tool that Helpfully was working on. We believe they want to do that in between all the patient sessions. So in between every appointment, they would like quickly go and do this thing.
Sure.
Because it's fresh, it's top of mind, whatever. Great. But when you look at the data from like how nurses actually work. So we saw some of that in the real world. So this became, I'll just call it like, we moved it from like, oh, this is something we noticed, as you say, we just have one piece of evidence, like, oh yeah, or someone told us that in an interview. And then we've been watching them work. So we kind of moved it into a theory. We had a theory that like they would do it in this way. But we looked at this voluminous data of other people's healthcare hospital system thing for nurses. And it was showing like they were like, oh, there's actually three kinds of nurses. Nurses who do it ongoing during the day like we expected. Nurses who batch it all up and do it at the end of their shift. And you can watch them log in. Like they have this, like all the login data from their system, not ours. And then, so that's like, oh, I just take the whole, like, I don't know if you know, but like when a nurse like closes their shift, sometimes they like have to do like all their paperwork for like an hour after. They like go through and all their stuff. They just close down the day. And then there's some hybrid. Oh, there was actually a lunchtime. There were some people that had a little more lunchtime spike and they tried to do like half the day. Okay, great. These are how insights about this need, about how the product, and this affects like, how should our website look? What should we claim? What should we say? When we say it saves you 5 minutes after every appointment, but if you don't think about it like every appointment, that's a bad message. That's a bad marketing message. So we spent a lot of time looking at someone else's data and then adding those little insights into our view of the world, because it helps us change the dimension of this insight, which is like, hey, people do it this way. It's like, not everybody. And we actually changed our insight board based on this kind of outsider perspective. We just like found a cool paper, and I was like,
Yeah.
this cool paper is relevant to us. It's not our problem. It's not our space, but it's relevant to how nurses work and think. It's the daily life of a nurse is not just nurses are busy. It's something more nuanced.
More nuanced. And
so I got to bring them this nuance and say like, okay, well, we believed X, but now like, should we also build? And so the question for a product team in that case, or a marketing team, is like, well, what should we change? And so, as I already hinted, you might want to change how you market it, which is like, maybe it makes sense to say, save an hour a day, or get home to your dog in the evenings, because like they're racing, you're trying to get out the door and you want to have that as your moment and not this ongoing day-to-day thing.
So that might be more of, and that, well, first off, one, I always learn something whenever I get to hang out with you, which is the best part. And generally curious, because it's, for me anyway, I think insights are one of these things which I feel my way through. I haven't necessarily had a process for. And I obviously work with people that have great processes, and you have a really great process here that
I'd love to share with you, Mason. Love to.
Yeah, like going to totally steal this or borrow with attribution.
Lift and shift.
Yeah. And I'd love to be able to get into maybe in a second conversation on how do you get to the whys? Because what you're talking about there is how to be able to translate that insight into a benefit, right? So that someone, so we're not just talking about like what is the data back, portion here that we can see out there in the world, but it's like, someone really, they're doing their paperwork during lunch or whatever because they want to spend more time with their dog or whatever, which is, I think, probably getting to this overarching why that gets into something that is surprising and true.
I think there's something funny about that. I just describe it this way. Like, you always have like this big bullet, like this big, like imagining a slide in your head. And you have like the thing we learned. And then you have like a teeny little arrow. And then you have like, so what? And then a big list of things to go into. Yeah. And like the most interesting part of that slide is actually this arrow. The most interesting part is the way in which a creative person like you or creative team, like bringing the right kind of person into the room to take like insights, data, these notions of the world, these frameworks, but like, that's cool. That's good. Go do all that research. Not every team, not every company is great at like taking smart thinking and then figuring out like, how do I get it through this arrow, which is very little, into like, okay, now we have a bunch of new product things. And the bets board does help you a little bit in that regard, which is as follows. The team that is managing the existing business, like today's business, all of the current operating models and frameworks and tools that they use, and the website as it is, all that should live mostly in the back. Those people are working against what is. Then you have a kind of like a team or orientation, or the people who are trying to draw this arrow, which are a little more in these educated guesses, a little more in the hunches or theories, right? You've got these theory people, and the theory people's job is like to go and make new theories and make better theories. And then you've got people that are like true speculation types, and they're either really high altitude at the company, so they're senior leaders who are like, we should go into this other business. Surely you've had clients who are like, come into a meeting where you think it's going to be about this, and they're like, well, here's another new business we should start. And you're like, great idea. Yeah. This is not that meeting.
That's like my problem. So.
Speculation. And you just need to keep people lined up team by team by team on the part of the world we understand the best, the part of the understanding like middling kind of understanding. So those are our educated guesses and our theories. And then you've got like people that are just jobs is to be speculation. You might know we have a client for a long time, and a couple of people at the company have as their job title like futurist. Like that's their title. It says on their business card, futurist, and they're at a pharma company. And their job is speculation. The definition. Their job is to speculate about what could happen, and then what the company could and should do about that. And so they work on a team which is absolute speculators. They just are a speculation team. And not every company is so lucky to have full-time futurists. But if you do have a team of people who are kind of have that term and have that orientation, have that view of the world, they're, sometimes called like the innovation team, R&D,
Yep.
our next gen, right? You've got a next gen team. And then you have people that are kind of thinking about how do we transform today's business? And then you have people who run the heck out of today's business. So I just think from an ops or organizational chart perspective, you can also think about how this board helps the right teams have the right conversations, and then also keeps but anyone can have a speculation. So it's not like you can't contribute, but it's just like someone's got to be kind of in charge of our current speculation.
Well, Zach, I'm going to have to pause here because I'm going to jump onto another call. But I have a whole series of, and you would love this because this is very much your style, like sticky notes that I've been
Amazing.
scrubbling stuff down on. And yeah, but I'm going to take this back. Actually have a conversation I'm going to have tomorrow around CRO. And I'm going to totally go and talk about bets.
Set it up as a bets board.
Yeah,
do it.
Set up as a bets
board. They're going to love it. They're going to love it. Clients that I've experienced, like they really do like this a lot. I think it just helps take something very vague, very hard to manage, and just turn into like, hey, all we need to do is fill out a few sticky notes on these 8 cells, 4x2. And then you're going to be, at least you'll be somewhere in the conversation. And that's a great starting point to think about revenue optimization or revenue operations. Yeah.
Well, awesome to hang out with you for a little while. And second conversation, we're going to need to go. And I still haven't driven in a autonomous vehicle, so I'm saving that.
You got to.
We're going to go in and record something.
That'll be fun. Let's hop in at Waymo the next couple weeks, man. Can't wait.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Mason.
Cool. See you.